first of all, I got to thank Ginny Foley for recommending you. She's
Sure.
a big fan of yours and said that you're the best, and we totally agree with her.
She's actually a big help, because she knows more about all this networking on the computer and all the technical stuff than I do. And it's just made me lazy where I haven't really learned it. So I probably will never learn it.
Why would you if you got her taking care of it?
Well, she loves doing it. Let's face it, if you're good at something, you're really happy when you're doing stuff like that. So she likes doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you've been around this music industry for forever. How did you originally start getting into it? I
got into it basically because I like to paint and draw and everything, and I wasn't very good at playing football. So I picked up a guitar and I was singing with some guys in school, and I found out that girls really liked that. So I thought, okay, well, this will be a way for girls to pay attention to me. So that was really kind of the start of it. I mean, there wasn't any sort of deep need for me to express myself or, some emotional, trauma that I was having that I needed to have an outlet or something like that. It was purely for fun and for girls.
It always comes back to the girls for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm thinking that's probably about the story of just about every rock and roll artist.
Someone asked you once about what the worst part of being a musician was, and you said dealing with engineers and drummers. What did those two ever do to you?
Well, it's not what they do to you. It's what you try to get them to do for you. Because, first of all, engineers they'll disagree with you on a technical level, and drummers will agree with you on a rhythmic level. And when you're producing a record, you already know what you want. You don't know all the dials. And if I could have played the drums, I would have been like Paul McCartney. And I would have said, well, Ringo, just stand up and get out of the way. I'll just play the drums on this. John can play the guitar, and then I'll play the bass, and he'll play the piano, and we'll sing it. Go have a lunch, go have a beer, do something, So those two things. It's the thing about it is if you do anything, you're always going to be dealing with things that you have to make sure that you can adapt to. So I've adapted to all that real well. And quite frankly, the drummers that I use on my recording sessions, they're just so great that I just sit back and I go, yeah. So those the days of having drummer difficulties are fairly well behind.
Good for you.
But for engineers, I think I've learned enough. I've learned enough about sound engineering and about lighting to kind of make me pretty obnoxious to those people too. So, but at least I know how to ask for what I want, because if they throw something technical at me, I kind of already know the terminology. It's not.
That's cool. So you made a pretty big mark at an early age. At the age of 15, you released an album. And also you had some radio play. And at 15 years old,
hang on.
Pretty amazing.
Yes. At 15, I put out a record, actually. It was a single.
Oh, cool.
When I was 15, this is what people were buying. So,
absolutely.
I remember them.
So that's what I did at 15. And then I got significant radio airplay here in Texas because I'm actually from north of Houston in a little town called Humble, Humble. I don't live there anymore, but back then that's where I was going to high school and all this kind of stuff. And that's really, now you've crossed over from the, hey, I'm doing this to like that because I want girls to like me. Then I crossed over into it seriously, like, hey, I'm going to do this because I'm getting good enough to actually make money at it. And I think I need to keep following the breadcrumb trail. So yeah, I mean, I released a record, did pretty well, but I was still in high school. So it wasn't like I was going to quit and join the Navy or something. It was basically finish high school, then you can figure out what your next move is going to be. I would go out and while I was had the record out, the guy that actually got me into this was a disc jockey in Houston, Texas, very popular guy and a good friend of my dad's. That always helps. So he was the one who really got me into making a record. and then it helped me get it played in different places. And then not only that, he started getting me to come out to Gill's nightclub in Pasadena, Texas, because he had a set that he would do every Thursday night, and he'd always feature me on the set. So I got to have a lot of experience just by going in. Me and my folks would go in and hang out at Gill's nightclub for a few hours, and I'd get up and I'd sing. And it was this huge, massive place at the time, and it was good experience. So those were kind of I guess you would say those were kind of my roots in what you would be tangible music stuff, because up to that point I was playing with bands in my garage and playing little dances at school, and that wasn't real serious. This is when things started to get serious, and then I started to want to make rational decisions. I heard Ronnie Millsap was making records, and his records sounded so great, and I realized they were making them in Nashville. So when I graduated high school, I decided to move to Nashville because I wanted to learn how to make records that sounded like that and write songs with those songwriters. And basically, like any 18 or 19-year-old, I wanted to be like the biggest star on the planet. But there's only one planet, and there's only a couple of stars to go around. So, but the long and short of it was I stayed in it long enough to really start to have experiences, enjoy things, make a living at it. And I was told time and time again from experienced people who kind of had been there and back, so to speak. They said, look, the definition of a successful artist is one that's working. Cool.
Randy, two things. What was the name of the 45 that you released?
It was called Please Captain.
Please,
and
Captain.
Yeah, and I found out early on that if you write a song about what your dad does for a living, then he'll actually spend the money for you to go in the studio and make a really good record. Right? Exactly. So he was an airline pilot.
All right,
so,
excellent.
So he said, "Oh, I love this," and I'm like going, "Well, I hoped you would." So
when you first went to Nashville, do you remember the name, or do you remember which studio you went into first?
It was a place called Sound Shop, which was really kind of neat at the time. Sound Shop was it was a really well called on studio. In fact, about 2 months before I was there, Paul McCartney was recording his country album with the song Sally G and stuff like that. So McCartney actually recorded there, and a wealth of other artists recorded there, but as famous artists go, I would say he was probably the most world-renowned famous artist to record there. So it was a dandy studio, and it was a great experience because now I was thrust into a world of people who were complete, high-end professionals, and I'm the amateur kid, and they're all so very kind, and they're all so very understanding, and they're also very willing to kind of tell me, well, this way, that way. And so I learned quite a bit in just that first, because it was basically it was a 4-song session. I learned a lot just out of that, to sort of progress where, my brain needs to be, connecting the dots and what I don't need to be worried about,
Yeah. And as a kid, you got all this advice. Who gave you the best advice, and what was it?
Well, the first producer I had is the one who gave me the best advice. What is a successful artist? An artist that is working, someone who's working. So he had moved to Nashville and became an engineer, recording engineer, and then he ended up being an executive vice president with Sony Music. So I was fortunate enough to fall into the hands of people who had they had my best interest at heart, and they weren't. Because in Houston and in a lot of places, as you well know, you can fall into some, I don't know, not so friendly territory, especially in the entertainment business. I was fortunate enough and I was guided enough by God's hand to go, this is going to work for you, Randy, because first of all, it's not going to scare you off. And second of all, you're going to get something out of it that's going to be positive, and it's going to help you along the way. So his name was Tommy Casassa. He was a great gentleman, really good record producer, had really good ears. He could really hear things, and he made some really nice records on me. And I have to say, once again, I learned a whole lot just from that experience.
That's pretty cool.
That's great. You've opened up for like Hank Williams Jr., Amy Grant, Leanne Rimes. Who else have you opened up for?
Well, I've actually, one of the big ones that I did was in New Jersey in 2001. It was a 9/11 benefit show. It was actually the first live performance given in a big public arena, and this was at the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, and the headliner was Bruce Springsteen, and John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora were on the show. Part of their band was there. It was mostly Gary Talent who had assembled the band. So you had Max Weinberg, and you had some other guys. You had some guys from the E Street Band. Then you had other guys who were just friends of Gary's, who were just amazing musicians. And the show itself was it was an amazing couple of nights there at the Count Basie, because it was actually the 2 nights preceding the concert for NYC, which was the 9/11 benefit that was broadcast on television, all that kind of stuff. But this was mainly this show was mainly New Jersey artists, but I was already on it because the show was actually prearranged to be another type of a thing. It was supposed to be a benefit for World Hunger Year, which is a Harry Chapin benefit that Harry started when he was still alive, because he was like, you know what, I want a charity that feeds people who need to be fed. So this was going to be a fundraiser. And the basis of the fundraiser was a guy had just made a film, independent film, about Sun Records in Memphis, Tennessee. And I had been writing and recording some songs with a guy named Carl Perkins for a little bit. So I was familiar with Carl real well. And the guy who was basically coordinating the show was also a guy who had worked with Carl, but he knew all these Sun record guys and everything. So he put this show together, and he said, Randy, I want you to come up and sing some of Carl's songs. And I said, wow, that's amazing. So that's what we were going to do. Then when the attacks on September the 11th happened, everything changed. And so many things got canceled. And this guy named Bill Ayers, who was also basically an organizer for this event, he was in New Jersey. He was at a traffic light, and Bruce Springsteen pulled up next to him, sitting there at the traffic light with his wife, and he rolls his window down, and he looks at Bruce, and Bruce knows him. He says, Bruce, we need you. And Bruce says, you do? And he goes, yeah. He says, what for? He says, we need you to do a show for these people here in New Jersey. And he goes, I'm in, call me. So when Bruce signed on, then all of these other New Jersey artists immediately said, we want in too. So Joan Jett was on it, Smitherines, Phoebe Snow, Joe Ely. There was just a wealth of artists. A guy named Henry Gross. I don't remember Henry Gross or not. He had a record called Shannon Is Gone. Yeah. It's called Shannon. Felix Cavalier of the Rascals, he was there. Wow. Doing the thing. It was like a 3-hour show. So it was, wow. It was 2 nights. So that's probably one of the like most significant things. And probably I will say, and I'll just tell you guys this right now, for me as a person and as a spiritual person and as a believer, it was a real game changer, because they say that that you are sent here to do things, but there's one really important thing that you're probably meant to do. I really think that was the 2 nights that I was really meant to do, because I was kind of summoned all the things my mom had taught me and all the things that I believed in that were good, and I put it right there on that stage. I talked to people who had lost people in the Twin Towers. You know, I prayed with them. You know, I encouraged them. The whole building was filled with most of these folks who were in the building were people whose their families were victims of this attack. So it was probably the pivotal thing that, you know, if I had died 2 days later, I would have basically said, well, it looks like that I did what I came here to do.
Cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Is that the same show that Elvis's rhythm section was playing in?
Yes, we had Jerry Sheff, we had DJ Fontana, and a guy named Sonny Burgess was playing guitar, who had played with on some Elvis shows. But Sonny was he was a Sun Records artist in himself. So yeah, I mean, it was just like it was it was really, really fun. And for a kid who was born in Memphis and grew up listening to that music, I was just like, it's a wonder I could get one word out of my mouth, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I cruised right on through it, and it was really, really, it was really great. And I'll impart this to you, not to brag or toot my own horn, but after the first night, Gary and Henry Gross came up to my room. That we were all staying at this hotel, like this Hyatt. He came up to my room, knocked on my door, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "Man," he said, "I wanted to come by your room and tell you about tonight's show." And I said, "Well," I said, "it was really, really spectacular." He goes, "Randy," he says, "you don't understand." He said, "I have played in stadiums." He said, "I've played in the largest arenas." He said, "I've played all around the world." He said, "I have felt the energy of audiences time and time again with Bruce." And he said, "Tonight's show was the highest, most spiritual, most meaningful, most soulful thing that I have ever been involved in." And he said, "And you were part of it. I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate it." This is Gary Talent.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, if you can do it, if there's the opportunity is there to lift other people up and encourage other people, do it. Don't wait. Don't go, oh, don't look back and go, well, maybe I should have done this or done that.
Yeah.
We went down to on Saturday, we went down to Lower Manhattan, and we visited a couple of the fire stations. And one of the fire stations we visited, they lost over half their members in this thing. And that it was not a happy scene. Well, I bought this fire, you know, they had the ball caps that said, you know, NY Fire Department, NYFD on them, you know. So I had this ball cap. And when I got there, I met these guys and everything. And I said, "Would you guys do me a favor? Would you guys autograph my ball cap for me?" I couldn't have given $1,000,000 and made them feel better than at that point, because all of a sudden they were like, "Yeah, I want to do this." You know, this kid really loves us for who we are and what we represent. So they all signed it. So I still have that ball cap here somewhere, but it was really, it was really a time that I hope never gets repeated, but I hope that in people's hearts and in people's souls, that they repeat that feeling that they got on the 12th of September.
Absolutely. That unity was, I don't know. I hope we never have to come together like that for that reason again, as you say.
Me,
But
no, I think right now, and I think for a long time here, we've kind of been we've been under a soft attack from so much coming at us,
yeah,
that, you know, it almost seems, and I'm going to tell you guys this because I've traveled a lot, and I've seen a lot just everywhere, not just in America, but in the world. Things aren't always as bad as they're telling us. And the only reason I'm going to tell you guys this, you may not believe this, but this is what I see. This is just an outsider or an objective, you know, viewpoint that I have. It's not the gospel, but the media, and they all are in on it. They tend to want to create something dramatic in order to keep people locked into that. Because what happens when things are really, really bad and they have a lot of bad stuff to report? A lot of people watch. Well, what happens? Their ratings go up, their arbitrons go up. Well, when their arbitrons go up, what happens? They get to charge more money for advertisement. What do they get when they charge more money for advertisement? The owners and the proprietors are like, yeah, this is great. You know, people need to take an intelligent takeaway from all that stuff instead of just treating it all as gospel. Because you know, it's crazy how it's gotten that way, and it's not really going to get, you know, any different for a while, because the wheels are turning, you know. All the time, wheels are turning. So that's why I enjoy being a musician and doing what I do, because I get to take people away from that. You know, I get to pull them away from that. And even if I have something to say, I can make fun of it. I can actually, you know, make it not only satirical, but just comical, because that's what people really want to do. They want to laugh at their problems. They want to laugh at things that are kind of bogging them down, you know, and they want to kind of escape and get away and feel something different instead of anxiety and anger, you know.
You hit the nail on the head with that one. The escape is what people go to comedy shows for. They go to concerts, they go to the movies for. Escape the reality that's bogging everyone down and bugging them. And you do a great job of that. And speaking of escape, I think your song, a Jimmy Buffett song, is not a tribute song. You didn't go out there to write a tribute song, but it plays like one, it sounds like one, and it feels like one, but it is a great song, you know. And if people did that and escaped with that song a little bit, I think it'd be a happier world around here, that's for sure.
Have money, savings and healthy retirement plans. They worked it all out while I built my life on shifting sands. See, I've been a cowboy and I've been a sailor and I've been a screen acting fool. I guess I should have stayed in school. See, I didn't think it was cool. Now it's hard to get up in the mornings after staying out most of the night. My vices and habits are just like a sailor's delight. And I'd have taken better care of myself if I was gonna be around this long. Living my life to a Jimmy Buffett song. Well, it's taken some time, but I got a good woman who truly believes the ground that I walk is holier dirt than St. Peter's grave. She says I'm the one who came along and rescued her soul from the sea. That's almost funny to me, 'cause she's the one who rescues me. When it's hard to get up in the morning after staying out most of the night. My vices and habits are just like a sailor's delight. And I'd have taken better care of myself if I was gonna be around this long. Living my life to a Jimmy Buffett song. Now I still have a few lucky stars left up in the sky. And if it all ended tomorrow, I've had one hell of a ride. It was hard to get up in the morning after staying out most of the night. My vices and habits are still like a sailor's delight. And I'd have taken better care of myself if I was gonna be around this long. Living my life to a Jimmy Buffett song. I'm still living my life to a Jimmy Buffett song.
I've played so many of these shows. I've played at Margaritaville casinos and hotels and clubs and different things. And I've played different places where you had a lot of the Jimmy Buffett type fans and and they call themselves parrot heads and so forth. But let's face it, there are so many people who love Jimmy Buffett that aren't parrot heads, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, they don't like try to live half their life in a Hawaiian shirt because you know the thing about the word Jimmy Buffett really what it embodies is it embodies this sort of like, spirit of freedom and being able to just get away from the normal thing and making something that's like really fun, like being out on a boat or fishing or surfing or windsurfing or whatever. If you can't do any of that, just the idea of that has a lot of freedom, and it's a lot of it's a way to kind of let go of things, like you guys said. It helps you escape from the day-to-day drudgery that that the world always tries to force us into. And it's like, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to do this for a living, and that's probably a good thing, because I don't know how much of like day-to-day drudgery I could take. I'd probably be dead by now, because I'm a worrywart when it comes to stuff. But when I'm doing this, I don't really have to worry that much about it. So, but the Jimmy Buffett song was produced with myself and with Norbert Putnam. Norbert's the guy who produced Margaritaville and about a dozen Jimmy Buffett albums over Jimmy's career. And that's the reason why it sounds like it sounds. Norbert told me the story of the Jimmy Buffett sound. He said, when we were recording down in Miami, he said it was my first record that I was doing with Jimmy, because he didn't like Come Monday. He didn't like that sound. He wanted something to sound like what he sounded like. And Norbert said, well, what do you sound like? He said, well, I sound like when I play live with my band. He says, what do your band sound like? He said, well, we sound like the Rolling Stones playing Come Monday. and Norbert's like, well, I don't know if that's going to work or not. So anyway, long and short of it is Jimmy he had just bought a sailboat, and he sailed it down to Miami because they were recording down there. So they were making the record, and in the afternoon they would take the rough mixes, and it had Jimmy's voice on it, but they were just the rhythm section mixes, and they would take them out on Jimmy's boat, and they'd ride around and they'd have a drink, and they would listen to these things. And Norbert, it struck him. He said, I need to make this record sound like we're on this boat. I need it to feel like the ocean, like we're on the water, the sounds, the feel of the ocean. So he's the one who started adding all this stuff. So when I made a Jimmy Buffett song back in 2015, we recorded down in Muscle Shoals, and I said, Norbert, can we kind of make this, have like a Jimmy Buffett sound to it? He said, oh, absolutely. He said, I've been thinking that all along. He says, yeah. So we got Jim Spake to come out and play the flutes and play the saxophone, and we had some clavinet, and we had some marimba stuff, and just all the the percussion stuff, just everything. And it just embodied the whole lyric. So quite frankly, when people hear it for the first time, since it's after Jimmy's passing, they're, oh, this must be a tribute to Jimmy Buffett. It's like, no, it's actually a tribute to his people who love his music, because so many of these people that I've run into over the years, and this is where the idea really came from, so many of these people, they actually they'll embrace a song or certain songs of Jimmy's, and they will use the lyrics and everything almost as their philosophy, to for lack of a better word, their guide, or their log line. If they're writing a movie script about their life, they're using they're using a line from a Jimmy Buffett song as the log line.
Yep.
So that's really where the whole thing came from, and it's done amazingly well with very little like pushing on my part or anybody's part. I told Jenny, I said, you know what? I said, we have promoted our butts off on records. I said, let's just put this one out there, because I don't know how it's going to be perceived. I know it's a great sounding record, and I love it. And I said, I play it for people who know me, and I said, they love it. But I said, the only person that's going to be honest with me is my wife, and she loves it, because she'll veto stuff all the time that I'll go, boy, I really thought that was good.
Yeah. Well, you need someone that's going to give you the honest opinion.
Well, she does, man. She knows. She's not a musician, but she has an everyman's feel for what really, really has like an emotional, intelligent, and a rhythmic, just everything about it. She moves all the terminology out of the way, and she just kind of closes her eyes and listens, and it just goes straight down into her soul. And whatever that tells her, That's what she's going to tell me.
Beautiful.
You know, I put the song out last year just for like the weekend after Jimmy Buffett had passed away, and then I pulled it. And my reason for doing that was, first of all, I wanted people to hear it because it was a newer thing that was produced by Jimmy's producer. And second of all, I kind of wanted to see what people's reaction would be, because, you know, I'm not a person who is going to post a picture of myself and some artist, you know, 2 days after they die. That's just not what I do, you know. So I thought, I'll just put this out and just see what the disc jockeys are thinking. And they really liked it. And then I pulled it, because I didn't even just do distribution on it. I just sent them an MP3. And so this year I got contacted by a lot of those same guys and some other folks. They said, you know, we're going to be doing over what we call Jimmy Buffett weekend now, which is Labor Day weekend. We're going to be doing tribute shows. Can we get that song? So I said, okay. So I plugged it in for real, distribution, the whole 9 yards. And I told Jenny, I said, okay, let's send this everywhere. I said, because I think it's time for this song to be out. And I guess I had a good feeling about that, because it's working. You guys like it, so that's great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a great
We've
song.
added it to our playlist, Musicians of Beyond Crossing This Country. So it's there. It's on our favorites as well. And I'm going to be down in the Caribbean in 10 days. I'll be playing this song everywhere we go.
All right. The song I had out before this was called Before Elvis, which
I love that one.
Yeah, well, I wrote that with my uncle, and it was a true story, because my uncle went to high school, and the kid that was like a class ahead of him was Elvis Presley. So they were in Memphis, Tennessee. So when he tells me all about this stuff, he says, well, you think we could write a song about it? I said, absolutely. I said, what took you so long to tell me? And he said, well, I wanted to come up with a good line for a song. So I just, you know, I would just flood social media with, you know, Elvis did this, and this is, you know, all this kind of stuff and everything. This time, I really haven't said a word. I just said, you know, here it is. Here's the video. I'd love for you guys to play this. I hope you like this song. I hope you like this record. And the response has just been, well, you guys are doing it right now. So what your response is response that I'm getting. It's very positive, and it's very encouraging, and I could not be happy with this point.
Again, I got to tell you that before Elvis, I was driving into Comics Come Home into the TD Garden the other night, Saturday night, and on my way in from my house, I listened to that over and over and over, and I loved it. And I sent it down to my dad. I said, Dad, he's a big Elvis fan. I said, you got to listen to this song. And so now that I know the story behind it, it makes it even that much more special and that much better of a song for me.
And you also have a couple other songs that are on charts, but A Mother's Prayer.
They laid the baby in her arms. She watched her newborn son sleeping. She closed her eyes to say a prayer, asking the Lord for his safekeeping. You know his life has just begun, and sometimes it won't treat him fair. So be with him when I can't. All I can give my little man, here's a mother's prayer. A mother's prayer can move a mountain. A mother's prayer is pure as gold, and the angels in heaven make sure she gets heard up there. 'Cause there's nothing that's more precious to God's ear than a mother's prayer. She tries her best to explain as she holds his little hand, saying you're meant for better things. My hope is you will understand. Now all the papers have been signed, and your new home's waiting there. I'll tell you soon how you were the answer to another mother's prayer. A mother's prayer can move a mountain. A mother's prayer is pure as gold, and the angels in heaven make sure she gets heard up there. 'Cause there's nothing that's more precious to God's ear than a mother's prayer. It moves the mountains. A mother's prayer, it's pure as gold, and the angels in heaven make sure she gets heard up there. 'Cause there's nothing that's more precious to God's ear than a mother's prayer. Nothing that's more precious to God's ear.
Thank
And that's also on charts. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
I wrote that when I was living in Nashville, and I had a publishing deal. And when you have a publishing deal, you arrange writing appointments, which I call forced creativity. So what you usually try to do, if you've experienced this, you try to show up with something that already has something going on. That way you can already get past that first question, which is, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? You know? So I already kind of had the answer to what do you want to do? When I showed up, this guy I wrote the song with is the lead singer of this country group called Ricochet. And they were really hot at the time. They had a song called Daddy's Money out, and they were fixing to make their second album. And so he wanted to write songs with different people. And so my publisher happened to know his managers. So he came in one day, and I had this idea that my mom had given me about angels. She had read this book about angels, and she told me that there was a chapter in there about a mother's prayer, and how a mother's prayer gets the highest priority with the Almighty when the angels bring requests to be filled. You know, those get the top priority, a mother's prayer for their child. And I thought that was kind of interesting, so I just kind of filed it away for a while. So as I'm driving to this appointment, now all of this stuff is playing in my head, and I can hear the song, you know. And so I show up and I play it, what I was hearing, and Heath Wright is the guy that I showed up to write with, and he said, oh, I love that. He said, can we make this song about a woman who's giving up her child for adoption? I said, well, yeah, sure. I said, that's great. I said, that's so different. I said, let's go for it. So we hammered it out. We've pretty much finished the song in a couple of hours, because it just came together so smoothly, and I still didn't understand. So we got done, and we committed it to a little cassette tape, little work tape. I looked at him, I said, how did you come up with that idea of a woman giving up a child for adoption? He said, well, I'm adopted. And he said, I just found my birth mother this past year. And he said, I want to give her something for Mother's Day, so I'm going to sing this song for her. And I went, wow. I said, that's just great. So he let me know that she just absolutely loved it, obviously, when he sang it for her. And then when I recorded it a couple of years ago to actually put it on an album, because I had a reason to put it out, and an album to put it out on, because I knew it would get heard. So I called him up, got a hold of him, and he said, it's a strange thing you'd be contacting me about this song. He said, I just sang this song about a week ago. And I said, man, where would you sing? He said, I sang it at my mother's memorial service.
Oh, God.
I went, well, then I think the song's going to sound good. I think it's going to have some spirit to it. He goes, absolutely.
It's a great story.
Yeah. And the song itself, you know, just that story of the song isn't near as great as what the song does when I play it somewhere, because every time I've ever played it somewhere, someone comes up to me who is adopted. They know someone who's adopted, and they share something, and they're practically in tears when they're talking to me because
Sure.
it reaches out and it touches them. And seriously, when you're a songwriter, you're an artist, that's what you strive for, but you never know how it's going to be interpreted. I have people come up and tell me stuff about songs. I just go, I never knew that. You know? So
Well, I can tell you this, one of the things I'm picking up on, there's a reason why you're a songwriter. There's a reason why you're gifted at this. And it's your storytelling ability is amazing. And it makes for a great conversation for us because we can just sit here like this all the entire show and just listen to you. And you have a really great knack for it and you captivate people. So that's beautiful.
I don't pride myself on that, but
well, you should.
But I mean, I can get into the habit of actually over talking stuff. Kind of like I can get in the habit of taking too many practice swings on the golf course and then not even being able to hit the ball. So.
It happens. Before we close out, we want to tell our listeners to go to their social media and follow Randy C. Moore. And you can find out more about him on randycmoore.com.
One other thing before we go also, we want to remind, given the season that we were about to come into, Randy has an incredible Christmas album. And so it's something we should throw out there real quick and let people know what are some of the originals and some of the covers that you've done on that album.
There's a song on there that I wrote with a friend of mine called Next Year, I'll Be Home. And it's not a true story, but it came from sort of a story because he was stuck down in Tennessee and he couldn't get back to Pennsylvania because he had no money. He had basically come down to Tennessee to write songs. He got a regular job. He got fired or laid off or something. He was like, I don't have any money to get back home. He said, I'm going to be stuck here. And so he said, I had to tell my wife I'll be home next year. And I said, that might be actually a good song. And so we sat down and wrote it. And so I decided, I said, why don't we make this about a guy overseas, who wants to get home. He was expecting to be home for Christmas, but he's just not going to make it because he's still got this job he's got to do. And so then we wrote it, but then after that, I gave him $500 and I said, go home. But that's on there. There's a song on there that I wrote about the last Christmas that I ever spent with my mom because I was playing over in Tunica, Mississippi, and she came over and she was by herself because Dad had passed away the year before that. And so my mom and Dad got married in Memphis, Tennessee. So I said, hey, let's go to the Peabody Hotel in Memphis and we'll have Christmas dinner. So we did. We couldn't eat in the big ballroom. It was booked out. So we ate in the bar. And as we were eating in the bar, it did something incredible that it hardly ever does on Christmas Day in Memphis. It started snowing. So all of these images and all this stuff started coming to me. So we drove over by Graceland, looked at the lights, and I could see Mom kind of going back in time when we would go to places and do things that day. So I wrote this song called Christmas Day in Memphis. So that's probably my favorite song on the record because it's just personal, but and also too, it was nice because I had a couple guys who played on Elvis's records who actually played on that track. So it's kind of
Beautiful.
neat to have that. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Ginny's turned me on to your YouTube videos, and you are definitely one guy that I would like to see in person.
Well, it's fun. I like to have fun, and my idea of playing live has got nothing to do with arenas or stadiums. That stuff kind of scares me to death, tell you the truth. I like being in like a living room setting. I like people to be real close to me. I want to see them. I want to see them smiling. I want to see them, singing along. I want to feel them. I want to know what they want to hear because, it's my job to do something for them. That's what I do. So yeah, I'd love to have you guys be in on something, or hell, if you do something up there, give me a holler. All it takes is money and time to do anything.
That's right.
Awesome.
And so listen, I want to make sure we tell people we have a Christmas playlist as well on our channel. So we'll be adding your songs to there. Make sure that you go as the season approaches, make sure you go on, listen to some of those songs. But if you're going to be in the Caribbean, if you're going to be on an island, this is a song for you. It's a Jimmy Buffett song. And I have to tell you, it is a great song. And I thank you for writing it and bringing it to us.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Randy, thanks again. Randy C. Moore, randycmoore.com. Download his music, support him. Tremendous guy, easy to talk to, lots of stories, a lot of fun, and just one hell of a guy. And we appreciate everything.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Randy, as we say, as we end every show, we're thrilled when people come on the show with us and have a great conversation. Something we want to thank you for is coming in, being a friend of ours, and we look forward to coming down and seeing you live.
We appreciate your time and have a great evening.
Yeah, Randy, take care.
Thanks,
Be
brother.
safe.